to each of you here at the IRO Summit. My name is Betsy Kirkpatrick, and I'm the Managing Director of Strategic Programs for the Property Management Division of BGSF. As you have hopefully seen in my bio, I've been in the multifamily industry as a property manager and regional trainer for almost 5 years prior to joining BGSF about 9 years ago. I've been in your shoes stressing about staffing, and I hope that today's presentation brings a unique perspective, helpful ideas, and some great data to help in your decision-making process. I'm going to be joined shortly by Kelly Brown and Eric Peters, division presidents with BGSF, for some open dialogue and questions. But for now, I'm going to be going over some data that we have pulled from multiple sources that we hope can shed some light on employment figures, trends, and much more. Without further ado, let's get into it. Our plan for today is what you see in front of you. First, we're going to go over the most recent job report, workforce trends, some future projections, and then get a peek into the world of IRO before we get our expert insights from Kelly and Eric. Let's talk a little bit about the state of staffing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics just released their most recent jobs report. I'm going to share some data from the report and then give a few insights from the BG team as to how this affects staffing. Most recently, we're showing a jobs gain of 187,000 in August and an unemployment ratio of 3.8%. One of the headline figures in the report is the rise in the unemployment rate to 3.8%, up from July's 3.5%. This increase reflects a higher number of Americans actively seeking employment, which can be seen as a sign of confidence in the job market. However, this rise also highlights the labor market's evolving dynamics as the Federal Reserve implements measures to moderate economic growth. A notable trend in recent months is the moderation of hiring rates, with the average monthly gain falling to 150,000 over the past 3 months. As you can see here, the total job openings, and then our unemployed persons per job openings has dropped to 0.7. This is a stark contrast to the average gain of $238,000 jobs seen in the period of March through May. Despite the slower pace of hiring, the job market remains relatively tight, leading most employers to retain their workers rather than implementing layoffs. This trend has contributed to increased average hourly earnings, which rose by 0.2% in August and 4.3% from a year earlier. All right, let's talk about some workforce trends. First, let's talk about pay transparency. So job seekers are looking to see job postings with a specific pay listed. If you're looking to hire, being as transparent as possible will absolutely increase the amount of traffic and qualified applicants on your listed position. The next would be investing in other spaces. Employees are looking for the thing that makes them want to stay with you. What are you bringing to the table that differentiates you from other companies? Next, we're going to talk about response to AI and some other technologies. As AI takes over, how are you as an IRO taking advantage of the prop tech that is available? And then lastly, sourcing non-traditional candidates. With there only being 0.7 people per job opening, are you open to other candidates that you traditionally would not have looked at previously? And this kind of leads me into another topic, which is legislation. With multiple pieces of legislation being proposed nationally and in specific localities, how are you as an IRO planning on dealing with the roadblocks of criminal background screenings as it relates to potential disparate impact? We'll take some time in our expert insight section to address a lot of these trends, as well as many more, so hold tight. All right, a couple more data information for you. Future projections from 2023 to 2024. As you can see, 78% of U.S. organizations say their 2024 salary increase budget is for year over year, and a 3.8% average projected pay increases for 2024. The average hourly earning growth of 4.3% from a year ago, though slightly lower than July's 4.4%, remains a positive sign for workers' financial well-being. This increase, combined with a rise in hours worked, led to a noteworthy increase in weekly earnings. These figures suggest the job market is providing opportunities for better compensation, offering a boost to workers' purchasing power. Here's a couple more things for you. Employment is scheduled to decline in 2024 and rebound in 2025. And the unemployment rate, obviously, as a result of that, is going to rise through 2024. The July jobs report also underlines the broader context of the post-pandemic labor market. Despite the recent slowdown in hiring, certain sectors like education, health services, and construction continue to drive job creation. Additionally, the moderation of economic growth and the Fed's efforts to cool the economy are contributing factors to the evolving employment landscape. While the increase in job numbers and average hourly earnings growth are positive indicators, the rise in the unemployment rate and the moderation of hiring rates suggests ongoing challenges in the economic recovery process. As the labor market adapts to changing conditions and industries like manufacturing and entertainment face unique disruptions, policymakers and economists will closely monitor these trends to inform decisions that shape the future of the U.S. economy. Lastly, before we move into our expert insights, I personally spoke with a group of independent rental owners, and these were some of the items that they spoke about the most that are keeping them up at night. First, margins are thin. As it is with any small business, unexpected costs can potentially make or break your year or cause you to come out of pocket for expenses. Secondarily, maintaining your asset, keeping your community running as it should is always an ongoing battle. Wearing so many hats is difficult, so all of the things that you're being required to do, as an IRO, you may excel in one area and struggle in another. And then benefits packages. How do you remain competitive with the big boys while keeping your costs low? Let's explore some of these questions and industry trends with the experts. I'm going to welcome Kelly and Eric. Would love for each of you to take a moment to intro yourself and tell us your industry experience. And I'll just go ahead and start with Kelly.
Thank you, Betsy. Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here today. I'm Kelly Brown. I'm the division president for the property management division of BGSF. And previous to my experience with BG, I did work on site in 4 different states over the course of 11 years. So I too can relate to all of the pain points that Betsy is outlining. And that was part of really what made me passionate about coming to BG and really focusing fully on workforce solutions that are specific to this audience. It's such an important part of the economy. And so focusing on the talent pool that we are bringing in is one important part of it. But then now I also get to partner with Eric, who will intro himself here in a moment, in all of the solutions that are out there and some of the technology movement that's been happening. So having the property management division focused on the on-site talent piece of it has been really great, because having gone through all those years of being on site and just knowing what it really takes to operate and give those renters the best experience possible is what drives us to really find those workforce solutions for you all. So thank you, Betsy, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, and thanks, Betsy. My name is Eric Peters. I'm the division president here at BGSF for our professional services operations, which really encompasses accounting, finance, and IT services. Prior to BG, I've been here a little over 7 years. Before that, I grew up in the accounting, finance, and IT space, specifically in the consulting arena. So, as Kelly says, I've seen a lot of the back office functions mature over the years, and certainly the intrusion of data security and putting things in the cloud. And we did a recent acquisition of a group that has a lot of AI functions, which we'll talk about today. So the evolution of helping a lot of small and mid-sized organizations grow has been a really, really fun journey for us. And we got some good insight for everyone today. Hopefully you can take away some key action items into how the business can develop.
Love it. Thanks, guys. All right, let's get into it. As an IRO, as we mentioned before, your margins are thin. Since pay transparency is so high on upcoming trends, how would you suggest an IRO present themselves online in order to attract top talent?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and speak a little bit to this one, Betsy. We talk to so many job seekers, and overwhelmingly, they want to know who it is that they're going to work for. Really, what strengths do they offer? And it does seem like pay could be that top question, and oftentimes it is. However, knowing just the full picture of what makes this a good employer to work for, that comes down to the day-to-day. What is my job really going to look like? So I would encourage you to focus as much on that in your postings as you are on pay. Really be aware of your strengths and get feedback from those that have worked for you. And straight from that audience, you can have takeaways that you use to present yourself online that paints that picture. Job seekers love to know, why am I going to love working there? What is it really going to be like? So really, don't be afraid to use that in a lot of your postings. Any extra perks that you find to be unique to you as an employer, that unique identity in and of itself will set you apart. Again, just reducing the unknown of, what am I really stepping into here, and why am I going to love working for this person? That is so important, and it'll be very well received. So that's one thing. And then also thinking about your interview questions as you're vetting out candidates. Ask a lot of questions, get to know them. Don't be afraid to ask things such as, what has been your favorite work experience ever and why? And dig into that, because the more you get to know them and really listen, they're going to tell you what they're looking for. And then that's going to help you know how good of a match it really is. And is that person going to really enjoy working for your organization? And also, are they going to be a good fit just culturally? So thinking through some of those interview questions, or even just asking, what would an ideal work setting be like for you today, and why? And why is so critical, because there's just the open-ended nature of your interview questions can help a lot. And then you just listen and listen and listen. And sometimes if they outline things that might not be exactly what you're going to be able to deliver for them, that's okay. That might just not be the right match, the right opportunity with that person. Move on to the next candidate. So if you can make some of these questions earlier on in your interview process, it'll help you a lot to make sure you're vetting out candidates that fit your culture, but also a culture that's going to be a good fit for the job seeker as well. So those are just a couple tips that I think can go a long way. Again, I know that pain point of that pay transparency, and you might be afraid, oh my gosh, what if I can't offer as much as a competitor or the community down the street? Find those differentiators, because I can promise you those do matter just as much to job seekers oftentimes as that pay question.
You are so right. I see online all the time where people are talking about regularly just that work-life balance and liking who you work for. That's such a key component of it. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. Yeah. All right, let's kind of pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about AI. We're seeing a prop tech blast. So how do you see that being a potential benefit to the IRO community, and what ways can they take advantage and implement this?
Yeah, I can talk to this a little bit, and then I'm going to hand it right over to Eric, because this is so his world. But from my perspective, there are so many tools. It's almost overwhelming right now. This is moving fast, right? So you can kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start. And that's okay, because everyone else out there probably feels similarly. This is where the beauty of organizations such as NAA is that there's a network. There's a network that's right there. There are companies right there that are already specializing in this and leveraging this in different ways that can help your property. It seems that overall, if you kind of think about it, like AI might enhance some of your processes, your people are going to focus on your relationships. And a lot of the tools out there will help you do just that, and really more affordably than you might assume. I know that was the case as I really did research in this, and as this is evolving, there are just a wide variety of solutions and ways you can leverage AI out there. So I would just say, to start, don't be afraid to leverage the organizations that you're a part of, the supplier network that's out there, because there are a lot of solutions that you can talk about and give feedback on as an IRO. Hey, here's something that when I'm really looking at my process from the very beginning of a renter's journey all the way through, anything that is a little bit more process driven than relationship driven, you might look at how you can plug in an AI solution and help you along, so you can really focus your salary dollars on your people, creating that really good experience for your clients. So that's just some initial thoughts. And then Eric, I'll absolutely toss it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I would focus on two areas. One is data analytics and predictive analytics. I'll talk about that. And the second is training. On the data analytics side, at properties and communities, you have a lot of data that you can load in, and there's a lot of tools that you can take advantage of in the AI space that help you talk to that data. So in other words, if you're looking at maintenance, for example, and generally when AC units need maintenance or repair, you have better visibility into appliances and the life cycle of an appliance. plumbing, water, sprinkler systems, looking at these trends and looking at times of the year where you need to have regular scheduled maintenance, or when do we budget when we know we have to replace items, talking to your data and using AI tools to do that, as opposed to just having a document or an Excel sheet or something in a Word format. AI can help with a lot of the predictive budgeting and cash outlay, which is very, very important to this group, I know. So there are tools out there that you can demo, and a lot of these are very relatively inexpensive, to the tune of maybe even several $100s a month for licensing fees to do that and house your data together where it talks back to you and gives you some better understanding. The second, Kelly and Betsy, is training. And we see this a lot through various industries, but I think it's very, very interesting of what we're seeing through a tool like ChatGPT, for example, where you can use that tool to write training curriculums and write training programs for leasing agents or for maintenance folks. You can use it for putting up a marketing campaign. If you're trying to highlight a particular property or a particular unit, or during a certain time of year, build these marketing campaigns through the AI tools. And that's going to help with cost savings, because you might be saying, we need a little more training around here. We've got this function that we want to put a marketing campaign together, but I don't have the money. We don't have the budget to outsource that to a firm. You can use AI, and we're seeing that happen more and more every day, because to your point, Betsy, it is growing exponentially. And Kelly's right. There's a lot that's out there. So I think you got to talk to your community. You got to do research and learn how other people are using it. And I would challenge this group to even look outside of the property management industry to understand other service type organizations that are providing good customer service and getting feedback from the end buyer, to see how AI is being used. It's kind of like the Wild West. You're going to have to pick, what works well for your business. But these are relatively inexpensive ideas and relatively inexpensive tools and platforms that you can pay a subscription to.
I love that Wild West because it really is the Wild West out here right now. Everyone is there's so much happening, and you're like, what can I do? Where there's 15 different things that I could try. So I love that. It's every man for himself and woman. We're all trying to figure it out.
You're right. And I think the main thing is you just got to try something. You got to jump in the water and do at least a little part of it, because if not, you're right. You will get left behind, unfortunately, because everybody is jumping on this bandwagon so fast.
I saw something on LinkedIn the other day, and it was essentially people are concerned that their jobs are going to get taken by AI. But what's actually going to happen is that we're going to have jobs taken by people that understand AI. And I think that that's really kind of where it's going, is like, it's not necessarily going to replace jobs, but it's going, if you're not familiar with how to utilize it, then your job might get replaced by somebody who can do that. So that's just something that I found interesting the other day.
Yeah, I think it's a real opportunity. I mean, all of the points Eric just mentioned, and earlier during the presentation that you started with, Betsy, unpredictable expenses are a huge pain point. So if you can just get a little bit more ahead, to Eric's point, of some of those expenses, and look at the largest unexpected expense you had. And then maybe that's where you start. You find that AI tool that maybe can give you a little bit more predictability around that. At least you can see it coming. So I completely agree. Just start somewhere. You might even leverage ChatGPT to polish up your job description, so that as you're making your postings, you've got something that's fresh. Any little thing that it would take a team member time to type out or to update probably could leverage AI to at least speed that up a little bit. Those are all just really great points.
I love that. All right, so completely differently, we're going to talk a little bit about legislation. So recent and upcoming legislation in many jurisdictions is seeking to avoid disparate impact by limiting the use of criminal background checks in hiring. How do you see that affecting multifamily? And what would your suggestions be to protect assets while not violating any of these laws?
Oh, isn't this a topic everyone just loves talking about? It's so necessary, though, because it is moving, and it is important to just stay up to date on what the do's and don'ts are. And the thing is, a lot of what's being passed really just are including specific steps that we as employers can take, and specific criteria that can be considered when we're reviewing criminal background screening. So, historically, a lot of what we looked at were maybe the nature and gravity of the offense. So what was the nature and how severe was it? How much time had passed since the offense? or the nature of the job that's being sought, and how does that relate to the offense. So now it's just kind of some yes ands to that. So California, for example, they just recently amended some regulations, and it's under the Fair Chance Act, and it just expands the scope of the factors that you need to consider. So including whether there was harm to property or a person, the permanence of the harm, was a disability involved or contributed to the offense, little items that they're adding. So just knowing that, the recommendation in general is to consider folks on a case-by-case basis. Just get away from maybe blanket policies and be willing to invest a little more time in evaluating every individual on a case-by-case basis. It starts with just knowing. And again, I'm going to give NAA another plug here, because there's legislative resources that can help a lot just with some of those questions. What does this mean for me? So don't be scared to leverage that resource and make it a little less scary. We know how legal fees can pile up, and be an unexpected expense that we were talking about earlier. So just simply knowing and taking a little bit of extra time to evaluate on a case-by-case basis goes a long way. The great news for multifamily is that we have a strong argument a lot of times for how we're deciding to hire or not hire individuals, because so many of our team members do access occupied residences. That has a big influence on the ability to hire or not hire based on a lot of the criteria that's being put out there. So likely you're going to be able to stay in compliance a lot easier than you might think. So I just encourage this audience to not be too scared by the headlines. Headlines are made to grab attention and made to be scary. So just don't be scared to use resources to really dig in and say, what does this really mean for me? What in my business processes do I need to change in order to make sure I am using hiring best practices and I am giving all candidates a fair shot at the opportunities that might be best for them? So again, just some tips and tricks on just knowing the facts. And additionally, keep in mind that when you do hire, a lot of the laws can also kind of become a defense, because you are using fair practices, you are evaluating on a case-by-case basis. So if for some reason the worst happened and there was an incident and it leads towards a charge of negligence or negligent hiring, that law backs you up by saying, well, I followed these best practices and this was kind of the reason for the hiring decision. So know all the way. My recommendation is just try to know all the ways that some of the changes and the amendments can work for you, and alter your best practices to where you're doing what you need to do to stay in compliance and hire accordingly. I hope that's helpful, Betsy. That was a little long-winded.
No, I think it was great. And I love that you mentioned NAA. They do a monthly legislative update, which is huge, but also they're just open to having conversations. Like, they're very willing for you to call them and just be like, hey, give me some suggestions here on these laws and what does it look like here in my area? So I highly recommend reaching out to them as well. So that's great. All right. So with the investing in other spaces trend, so upskilling, benefits, all of the other things, how could an IRO best participate in these trends to attract talent while keeping those costs low? We know those margins are thin. We keep talking about it.
Sure. I'll go and speak to this one too. I think this comes down to networking and communicating. There are so many options out there. This workplace is evolving. It seems like since COVID, everybody's like, yay, we're back to work, we're out here. But there are maybe some things I want to see be a little different now. So we're continually looking at this as workforce solutions folks. We want to know, okay, what are you looking for and what are employers offering? So just simply taking some time to network around and talk about what's going on and what folks are seeing. And by that, I mean networking with your client base, networking with your own employees, and networking with peers and suppliers out there. You don't want to forget just getting that feedback from your own clients, your own renters. And that way you're not necessarily guessing or making assumptions of, oh, well, I see this competitor doing this, I better do that too. Your renters might not even really want that. They might prioritize something completely different. So I do recommend just getting regular feedback, and that can really help drive your decision making. And then also not forgetting about, again, the supplier network, seeing what's out there and talking to them about affordability. There are suppliers that are able to change and tweak some of the packages or offerings that they have to cater to all audiences. So just taking that time to really get out there and just network in and of itself can go a long way. And gosh, renters love to know that their voices matter. That is the most impactful thing that improves resident retention, which we all want. So don't forget that voice of the renter, and also just your peer group, and really knowing what are you doing, how's it working, and then giving suppliers feedback. If something's just really expensive and it's not realistic for you, it's okay to let that supplier know that. They might take that feedback and say, gosh, we got to make some changes here. We got to repackage this. We're losing an entire population that we have not priced this accordingly for. So that's my biggest recommendation: just use your voice, talk about it, talk about it, and talk about it, and you'll find the right answers.
I love that you mentioned that. I'm just going to give a shout out to Yardy Breeze, who's hosting all of this for us alongside NAA. They did that exact thing where people came to them and said, hey, Yardy Voyager is a very expensive option. What can you do for me? And then they created Yardy Breeze for the IRO community and people of the like that, can't afford or don't need all of the things that come along with that larger system. So that's a great example. And there are other suppliers that will do similar things in some of these ways to like upskill and reskill and things of that nature. It just takes that conversation and being willing to be open. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
All right. So when do you hire and or outsource? So a question that was posed to me specifically was that a lot of IRO people are amazing managers. They might do really well with managing the property and the people aspect, but may not have the best like accounting, IT, HR, marketing, or even vice versa. They're great on the back end, but their front end isn't, they're just not used to that side of things. How do you decide when to hire or when to maybe use a contract worker or when to try and make a go of it just yourself?
Boy,
Yeah.
Eric, we start here.
Yeah. Maybe I'll start with the outsourcing piece, Betsy, and I know Kelly has thoughts on contractors. We both have thoughts on contractors, but in my experience when talking to customers, we use a phrase: be good at what you're good at. If you're in the business to manage properties and manage these communities, do that and be the best at it. The back office functions are typically the first things that people look to outsource. And the first question I would ask in any function, whether it's IT, marketing, accounting, HR, is that component that you're looking to outsource, is it that function, is it a key component to generating profit for you or a key differentiator for you in the marketplace? And if it is, hold on to it tight. If it's not, then you probably need to look to outsource it. So you may say, our marketing department, our marketing strategy is leaps and bounds better than what we see out on the street. And so we've got someone that's very talented at that. And that is a key differentiator for us. Or our HR team, our benefits, our philanthropic activities that we're involved with in the community, that's a key differentiator for us. And the people that live in our community love that. We'll hold that. But, with everything that's going on, we mentioned earlier about AI, looking at data security, looking at just general IT and accounting functions. If you have something that is either just, I'll say for lack of a better term, just kind of mundane, the same process day in and day out, month in, month out, that's probably something you could look at. If it's seasonality, where you're looking at really changing a specialized skill set that you only need for certain times during the year, or a function that's only going to happen in the business at certain points during the year, that's where you'll look to probably outsource something. Cost certainly comes into the equation. And I would say, much like the AI movement is growing, the use in accounting and finance and IT to use nearshore solutions down in South America, where there's a ton of talent in the IT space, or even offshore over in Asia Pac. That could be for this group, again, to Betsy, to your point, looking at, the margins are so thin, how do we save money? That could be something to look at. And that group is growing leaps and bounds over the last several years, especially past the pandemic. So if you are looking to outsource, I would highly, highly recommend using the network that we have here with NAA to go talk to other vendors and get references, and call those references and ask these vendors how they approach whatever function is going to be outsourced. What is their backup plan if something goes down? Because the law of averages will tell you there are always going to be hiccups. There's always going to be possible issues or intrusions into data or systems that fail. What's their backup plan? And talk to other people that are using those vendors. If you outsource a function, the first thing that you have to look at when you engage that vendor, what is their culture? What is their mission statement? What are they standing by? And does it align with yours? Because again, most of these efforts are looked to be some kind of cost saving initiative. But what typically the first part that will fail in an outsourced type of environment is lack of communication and lack of partnership. So sit down face to face, sit down on a video, talk with these folks, and make sure. The last thing I would say, Betsy and Kelly, is have some kind of measuring stick, have some kind of report card, have some kind of method of what does good look like, and a measurement of accountability to maintain that relationship with that partner. And look at these areas because, back to my original statement, be good at what you're good at. Technology evolves all the time, as our friends, from Yardi would probably echo that as well. So you have to stay current, and you have to maintain all those updates and those systems. And it's a challenge to do that and also be running a community. So those are just a couple of points, Betsy, that I would bring up. And Kelly, the whole use of contract labor is a whole nother different dynamic, because a lot of people in the IRO space may not know that there's this massive population of people that love doing contract work and love working at different communities and moving around for variety. So I know I'm sure you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, those are all really great points, Eric. And you're absolutely right. As I mentioned a few moments ago, COVID did change some things. Some perspectives of job seekers may be, hey, can I just work on a temporary basis? It's almost like some of the gig work that we've seen. Can I just bounce around? Can I go fix HVAC units at 10 communities in a week instead of just being committed to one? Again, listening to the job seeker helps us kind of cater to, okay, what is the best fit for them? Exact same for this audience, just looking at the whole performance of your portfolio. Where are the pain points and where can you plug in? And maybe contract makes sense if you need something that can bounce around at multiple properties or is seasonal, where you may not necessarily want to make that permanent hiring commitment. So just evaluating your portfolio and seeing where some of those gaps might be, and then exploring what maybe some of the options are to leverage a contract as opposed to a permanent hire is a great recommendation. And then also, to Eric's point on technology, you want to make sure that you're maximizing on your investment. There are so many technology solutions out there, and there are partners that can come in and just look at what you've got, look at your tech stack and say, hey, here's some areas where, you are leveraging it to its maximum capacity, but maybe here's some ways that you are overspending. So I'll give Eric a plug there, because that's his group, does that all the time. But just, figuring out where your dollars might be wasted versus where you're really using them to their maximum capacity in and of itself can be a huge saver year over year. So definitely encourage you not just to think of sort of human capital as the people that are working for you. That's of course your most important asset, but let technology plug in and help you along, and make sure that you're leveraging technology to its maximum ability so that some of the processes can be taken care of, and those very important team members that we value so much can be doing what they do best in growing your relationships within your portfolio. So I think just taking that holistic approach of looking at just every single piece of your portfolio, from the accounting and finance to the HR pieces to your on-site folks, everywhere you look, there are opportunities to consider whether you might hire versus outsource.
I love that. And truly finding that right partner is going to help you kind of whittle down, as you mentioned before, getting that person that actually aligns with your values. Both of you guys have kind of mentioned that, so that you can whittle down to determine, okay, what area is that going to be best in? And, I love that point there, because a lot of people are like, okay, I'm going to go with this least expensive or this person that can do it as quick. And sometimes that might be great in the short term, but in the long term, they're not aligned with you, and they don't necessarily have your best interests at heart. And so finding someone that is going to work alongside of you as a true partner is going to be such a key aspect of that.
And if I can add one more thing, Betsy, too, that's a great point. And I'm going to go back to, again, kind of like I was talking earlier about the voice of the renter. This is where the voice of your own team members can really come in handy. Get their perspective. How is the community running? What do you think? What do we need? What do we need on a permanent basis? What do you need more of? What can you do with less of? Engage them to really help in evaluating your portfolio and making that work. That's going to empower them. And then they're building a resume right there with you. Job seekers want to know that they're growing. What a great way to help them grow, to engage them in those types of discussions. And then that's going to create more tenure with your team members that you are investing in, because they're going to feel so important and engaged. And wow, they asked for my feedback on how to maximize on this investment. That's going to mean so much. And it's going to make them know that you do want to grow them and that your intention is to turn them into a very polished, tenured professional that's been in the industry for a long time, right there with your company. It does not take job hopping to grow a resume. Help them grow their resume right there with you.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. Okay, our last big question here, centralization. So this was a huge topic at NAA. Everybody was talking about it. I've seen everybody talking about it on LinkedIn. Do you see that being a viable option for the IRO community? And how would you recommend that they implement that? And I'll start. Kelly, can you? Okay.
Yeah, I can jump in. This is absolutely a hot topic. I think I see at least one newsletter a week that's talking about centralization hit my inbox, and a lot of it is a lot of the solutions around technology that Eric absolutely is well versed at. This fits in with everybody. This really is an opportunity. Kind of like I was just saying, evaluate your portfolio, evaluate your business, and figure out some things that maybe are being done. If there's one process that's done at every property in your portfolio, chances are you could look at it and figure out a way to narrow it and have it handled maybe by one or two people instead of having 18 team members handling one process over and over and over again. Can you take that and make one or two people really good at it? Just like Eric was saying, be really good at what you're good at, right? So let people plug in and get really good at some of those processes that maybe are currently being handled at every community. There could be an opportunity, and that's centralization. This is a buzzword right now, and it can mean a lot of different things. Really, what I'm seeing, the most successful cases of centralization are evaluating processes across a portfolio and what processes are duplicated, and how can you maybe take that and narrow it and plug it into one place instead of it being handled in so many. So that's really just the basic framework of centralization. So there are many ways you can gain efficiencies in doing so. Just make sure it fits. And my advice is to start with the experience of your end user. Is this going to enhance the renter's experience or not? If you let that be your shining star, any decision you make, honestly, is going to be a home run.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, Kelly, spot on. I agree with everything you said. I think the key to centralization and the word that comes to mind that jumps out at me is prioritization. So when you're looking to centralize functions, again, go back to the statement I made earlier, is that piece of the business or that process or that function that happens, is it a key differentiator against your competition? Is it something that is driving revenue for you? Those need to go to the top of the list versus the other things that are kind of more just either they're cyclical or just at certain parts of the year or again a lower priority field. Then is the effort needed to centralize that or not? So I would just say, you're right, to empower your team and for engagement, to ask your employees their thoughts and have, a powwow session of everybody coming to the table with looking at centralization. I think oftentimes, unfortunately, prioritization isn't taken into account, and you end up putting a lot of effort and a lot of thought into things that aren't going to give you the ROI that you thought you were going to get, because it's not one of those key differentiators. It's not part of that thing that drives a lot of revenue for the business.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And that's another one of those things where having a good partner and having a good network is going to be so key. Having those conversations with people and having people that have your best interests at heart is going to be an absolute differentiator as you're making those decisions. And also your team as well. So definitely. So our very last thing, this is rapid fire. I want to hear a really quick from both of you what your top tip is for staffing for an independent rental owner. I'm going to go Kelly, and then we'll go with Eric.
Oh, just scrutinize your interview process. review it over and over and over and over again. If you're still using the same interview questions you used even a short 3 years ago, dive into them. Really good interview questions can tell you a lot about your prospective employee.
I love that. Eric?
Yeah, my key word is networking. There's a lot of resources that are out there. Yes, we're all competitive. We're all trying to grow our business, but the industry that you're in is a very lively one. It's a very extroverted, industry of people that love to talk and love to share ideas and best practices. Grab that, use it as best as you can. Everyone, collectively, we're better when we work together in this industry. And so use your network to the best of your ability.
Better together. You are not wrong.
Yeah.
Huge thank you so much for Kelly and Eric for your time and all of your expert opinions today. Y'all were fantastic. We are so looking forward to the Q&A session and being available to answer all of your questions. Another big thank you to NAA and Yardy Breeze for having us, and to the IRO committee for putting this together and asking us to participate today. And that's it for us. Thank you so much for participating, and we hope you have a wonderful week.
And thank you, Betsy.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good day, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.